Hi guys, welcome back to Infinite Possibilities, the podcast where we explore the lives of amazing people, their choices, challenges and opportunities. And today I have a very special guest, Nick. Hello.
Hi, nice to be here.
Thank you so much for being on the podcast. It's a big honour.
It's good, glad to be here.
So Nick, what is your 1 minute intro? What do you do?
Yes, so I'm a manager at KPMG Australia. I'm a chartered accountant by trade, but I don't like to go by that moniker. I prefer just to call myself consultant these days.
Yeah. Maybe prefer Senpai Nick. But we'll get into that.
Yeah, maybe we'll get into that a little bit later. But yeah, no, I like to keep myself active, and yeah, I'm sure we'll talk about Senpai Nick.
Sounds good. So we want to go right from the beginning. Nick, so what kind of kid were you like growing up?
I was the youngest of three, so you know
little
that.
Baby.
Yeah, I was definitely the baby, and my brother and sister are quite a bit older than me, and so I was just constantly following them around, and I was constantly following them around and trying to do what they were doing, which was a lot tougher when they were 5 years older than you. So as a kid, you know, Mum always said I was really quiet, but then I was really loud at home. So I was really quiet when I was out and about, but then really, really quiet, really loud at home. And so she was never understanding it when my teachers at school would say that I was quiet. She always thought that was really interesting because I was a little terror by the time I got home.
Oh, I love it.
So I was the youngest of three. So for me, life was just all about trying whatever the hell my brother and sister were doing.
Yeah, that's awesome. Becoming that little copycat. Did they get kind of pissed, like, Nick, you know, find your own hobby, stop following me around, that kind of thing?
I definitely, there was more than a few times where I think my sister and her friends would try and ditch me at events because I was trying to follow them around, but she wouldn't admit that for a lot of years afterwards, because I'm sure that would have got me in trouble. But no, my brother and I, we had very similar interests, so that always helped. You know, we both really liked sports.
Yeah.
We played both of the same sports. You know, we played our video games together. We watched the same shows and the same movies. So growing up, even though he was quite a few years older than me, we shared a lot of common interests, which was good.
Yeah, that's awesome. So did that 5-year age gap, did that feel big, or did you feel like, yeah, I'm the same as you? Or...
I always thought I was the same as them, and that was always the funny part, because it was very clear I wasn't. So my sister's 6 years older than me, and she definitely, I feel like I was always a lot younger than her, but my brother was 4 years, and for some reason I always thought that, you know, whatever he does, I can do, and that's definitely not the case, especially between, say, like a 5-year-old and a 9-year-old. There's a big difference
when you're
there.
young, it's big.
And then that obviously got pretty pronounced by the time we were teenagers and getting into adulthood. So, you know, by the time my brother was 18, I was only 13 at the time.
Yeah.
And he was legally an adult, and I was just a teenager. Yeah. So, it was really interesting. Those sort of gaps felt like they widened when we were younger. Yeah.
It's like a parabola, right? They get bigger, and then now it probably doesn't mean anything.
And now it means pretty much nothing. I often forget how old they are. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then tell me more about the school environment. So why were you so quiet? Was it because, you know, around new people you were kind of like shy, and then when it's, you know, your family, you're just yourself?
It's interesting you bring it up, because I was loud around my friends, quiet in the classroom, which is what the teachers saw, loud on the playground, again they didn't see that part, and then I'd come home and be a nightmare. So I think for me it was very much I was always scared from a bit of a respectful way of getting in trouble at school. I always had a lot of respect for my teachers. I was never the one who caused trouble in the classroom. I always watched the other kids do it, and once or twice might have pushed somebody else to cause trouble so that I didn't get in trouble. But it was one of those things where as soon as the classroom door shut and I was just around my friends and my peers, I was very outgoing, yet in the classroom I was very quiet.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, you're pretty smart, right? You know when you can get away with it.
Well, that was it. As the youngest, I was very good at figuring out when I could get away with things. Yeah. And when you're in front of a teacher and it's just in a classroom setting, you can't get away with a lot.
Yeah, you can't.
Whereas when you're in the playground or amongst your friends, you can get away with a lot more. So might have been a little bit of conniving going on there. So
yeah, that's awesome. And would you say your natural state, are you like more loud? Are you more introverted?
I'm definitely more extroverted.
Nice.
I'm much
That's
more
the
of an
real
extrovert
Nick, guys.
these days. But I'm one of those people who loves their own time as well. So there's definitely a introversion in there, but majority extrovert. I get a bit bored when I'm hanging out by myself for too long.
Yeah, that's true. Perfect balance. Ambivert, they say.
Oh right, I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah, and cool. Tell me more about school. So were you academic? I know you're pretty sporty, huh? Were you popular? You should be popular.
I was definitely what I'd say a mid popularity. I wasn't
solid.
I wasn't high, I wasn't low. I'd go for captain positions, I'd get close. I did get one in high school finally, but
and which one was it?
I was house captain in
really
high school.
nice.
Yeah, I was going for both sports captain and house captain. And I got the phone call and I got house captain, which was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I loved that role. I absolutely loved it. But I was quite academic. Compared to my brother and sister, my parents have always saw me as the more academic one of the three of us. But all of my academia was steeped in practicality. It was, if I was in English, I would struggle because there was too much theoretical stuff in there and it was far too emotionally driven. There was less of the practicality of it. And then even in math, once it got beyond practical and started getting into theoretical and imaginary, that's when I started switching off because I couldn't see the application of it in the real world. And that's where I started doing business subjects because for me, the more I did those subjects, the more practical it became. And the more I was learning about what the real world might be like. And so, my academia kind of switched a little bit from pure academics in primary school and early high school where I was quite very solid to far more of the practical education sort of stuff towards the back end of high school.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm also curious, what did your siblings study since you wanted to be like them?
We are really a basket case of different, we're a melting pot of,
that's awesome.
Abilities actually. So my sister is a teacher, and she was always going to be a teacher, I think. I don't think anybody is surprised by that. She was teaching me growing up. She was teaching everybody else around her. So she went into teaching. She's been a primary school teacher her entire career, and she's absolutely smashes it.
Yeah.
My brother's career is very interesting. He actually went to Conservatory of Music.
The creative one.
Yeah, as a saxophonist. And he was really into his music, but he was also really into his sport. And so he always had that tie between sport, music. And funny enough, he was never huge in academics at school, yet he did the hardest subjects. So he was in, I think he did just chemistry, and it was really interesting because despite him being creative in a lot of the ways, he was also incredibly analytical. Yeah. So it's almost like he could never really figure out what he wanted to do at the time.
Yeah, but if he's good at both, that's awesome.
So he left doing music, he went in to do exercise physiology, went back to the sporty route.
Oh, wow.
And then now is starting to be a chiropractor and is like on a roll, like 7 GPA.
Wow.
The academia has just flourished in him like crazy. And he's now just like this incredible talent in like the academic world, and you can't just
That's a bit hard to beat.
Yeah. I'm just like, okay, I'm just going to keep doing my practical stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's his and my sister's and my careers have all just gone completely divergent ways. Just been quite interesting.
That's awesome. And did you ever want to be a teacher too?
I've always said that if I could make enough money and I could be comfortable and get to where I wanted to in my corporate professional life, I'd go back and be a high school teacher.
Oh, why high school? That's like...
Don't want to deal with little kids, and I prefer to deal with what I'd say almost fully formed adults.
Yeah.
And I'd love to be a high school business, economics, accounting. I'd go be a high school PE teacher.
Wow.
Yeah.
And which grade would you teach preferably?
Probably from grade 10 up would be the best. Yeah. I've always said I'd love to be a teacher.
Yeah, you have like a second career.
Well, that's it. If I eventually kick the can with the corporate world, I'll probably end up being a teacher.
Yeah, that's awesome. And did your parents have anything they wanted you to be growing up?
I think I'm doing exactly what my dad wanted me to be, which is always interesting. Dad has been a businessman for most of his career. He was a chemist. Worked in a lab, and he got plucked out and became a salesman, and has been doing that for his whole career and travelled the world doing it. And so he always was, I think, looking at the three of us going, which one of you is going to be the business person? And that's me. But my mum, she's a nurse, so my sister and her have almost gone down that route of, doing the more public benefit.
Yeah.
And yeah, I reckon I'm following in Dad's footsteps at the moment, but I reckon I'll probably shock him at some point in my career by taking a complete left turn.
Yeah, but that's awesome. And so when you were in high school and you're thinking about careers, you're thinking, I could do business at uni. What was kind of your second and third options?
I never wanted to be an accountant, and I never wanted to do accounting. Ever. I always thought it was boring, and I always thought I'd never want to do it. Yeah. And I was just like, wow, here I am.
Yeah, that's so funny.
I was always far more interested in finance, banking, investment banking, stock markets, and all of that sort of stuff. Economics. I was far more interested in that. Yeah. And I geared all of my studying towards that in high school. I didn't take accounting. Yeah. And that's why I did business management at uni, because I didn't know where I wanted to go in the business world. I just knew I wanted to work in the corporate world, and I liked numbers and finances and money in that sort of area. Yeah. But I just didn't know which career path I would go down at that point.
Yeah. So why international business?
Why not? That was part of it. I studied Japanese in high school, and I always thought maybe I want to go overseas. Maybe this will help me. Yeah. I started studying Japanese at uni and gave that up very quickly.
It's hard, right?
It's a lot harder. And I kind of got to the point where, international business, I really enjoyed it. I learnt a lot about, how businesses operate around the world. And for me, the best part about that entire degree was the strategy subjects. It was taking a view of things from a different perspective and applying problems to solve actual issues. Yeah. And that kind of goes back to the practicality. Yeah, I like to fix the problems rather than just talk theoretical.
Yeah. So, everyone wants to know, why do Masters of Accounting?
Well, I got to my third year of my business management degree, and I knew I wasn't going to get a job anywhere.
Did you try it? Come on.
I had been applying for internships and corporate adjacent roles, like administrator roles and stuff like that, and I got no traction anywhere. I got knocked back at every single corner, and I just kept getting knocked back. And so I went, right, I need to do something. And I decided if I wanted to work for, and I started understanding the Big Four and the accounting and the professional accounting world a little bit more, professional services. And I said, if I want to work for a company like this, the best way for me to get in will be to get accounting on my resume. And so I started my Masters of Commerce in professional accounting, which finishing that would allow me to become a CA, or commence my CA study. And I had not even finished a semester of that study when I got my graduate offer here.
Wow!
It was just on my resume. So I applied for grad roles at the end of my business management, because that was when I was a graduate and I could apply for those roles. And I had started my Masters, or I was on the books to start my Masters. And as I was interviewing at KPMG with my business management GPA and credentials, underneath it I had commenced Master of Professional Accounting. I didn't even have a semester's worth of results yet. And,
they didn't see that GPA.
But they didn't see any of that. And so all they saw that I had started my Professional Accounting Masters, and so I technically qualified. So I applied for all the Big Four and got knocked back from basically everywhere. Yeah. And I finally wound up here after about 4 separate interviews.
Oh, that's nice.
And I got bumped around to all the different divisions. Somebody finally said to me, would you be interested in an audit interview? I said, absolutely.
Yeah, give me a job.
Give me a job, I'll take anything. I just want to get my foot in the door. Yeah. And interviewed for audit, got the role.
Wow, so you started at Capers when you were still studying?
Yes, so I was doing my Masters. So I'd finished my undergraduate, and because you get the grad role about a year before commencing, I got to do an entire year of my Masters full-time, which was great because I front-loaded all the subjects that I might need to actually do my job.
Oh, that's so fun.
And then I did my last semester of my master's. I had to split into 2 semesters and go part-time.
Yeah.
So I went part-time for my first. So my first year at KPMG as a graduate, I was still studying my master's for a year.
Yeah, that's hectic.
So that was quite a lot to adjust to a full-time work and part-time study in that first year.
Wow. And how was work-life balance? Good on you tips?
For me, it was always just about keeping yourself efficient.
Yeah.
Just staying conscious of the fact that you can only do so much in a day. You've got to study outside of that. I'm a horrible studier.
Yeah. You a crammer?
Oh, 100%. 100%. So that also actually helps me because if I'm busy working and I don't have time to study, I can just
you're
not
going to
study
anyways.
and just wait till week 10 and jam it all in a few weeks.
Yeah, and then you just say I was working and people are just impressed.
That's it. I remember one time I rocked up to an exam in my first year here when I was a graduate, and I was still wearing a suit jacket and a tie because I had, I don't know why I was wearing a suit jacket and a tie because I don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
But I was wearing that day, and I rocked up to an exam and everyone's looking at me like, what's this guy doing?
Yeah.
We're all in like hoodies and like Crocs because we're actual uni students.
Yeah.
Why is this guy showing up to an exam in a tie?
Oh, that's so funny. Yeah, and so how was accounting? Was it as bad as you thought it would be?
No, I really liked a lot of the subjects to it because once again, as much as I hate to say it, was very practical in its application.
Yeah.
And I was, you were actually doing things. Parts of it weren't my favourite, like the really heavy financial accounting side of things and journals and stuff like that. Never my favourite. But you look at other parts of it and it's all about planning for the future and forecasting and budgeting and all that sort of stuff is far more interesting for me. And I took a bit of an interest in the technology side at that point. And I think that's actually funny enough, probably shaped a lot of where I am now, was starting to take a bit of interest in how the technology, ERPs and how technology sort of works within finance and accounting.
Wow, that's awesome. And if you were to sort of kind of compare your bachelor's and your master's side by side, so international business versus studying accounting, how was the experience? Would you rate one over the other?
Oh, that's a hard question. In terms of what I got out of it in the short term of my career, the Commerce Masters, 100%, it set me up to get to where I am now. But in terms of what I actually think I rely on in terms of some more higher order thinking and what actually helps me today more, I reckon I get more out of my business management degree.
Oh, that's controversial.
Yeah, I did strategy subjects in that degree, and I learned how to sort of understand case studies and solve problems in businesses, and really that's what I do now. I do a lot less technical accounting now, and so I got all that understanding of that through that. But funny enough, I use my old bachelor's of business probably more at the moment than I ever did, and a big part of that was also dealing with people. Yeah, and that's pretty much what we do most days.
Yeah, that's awesome. So if you could go back in time and plan the perfect degree, would you have first just done the commerce and then later done the management?
I would have liked to have done a dual at the time.
Oh, yeah.
I would have liked to have done a dual degree at the time, I think, and done it that way. Yeah. But if I had to pick one to go back and do it again, I probably would go back and do a Bachelor of Commerce and get that accounting out of the way. And then look to go back and do some sort of leadership, business management, strategy style course later on in my career.
Yeah, that's awesome. Cool. And then tell me more about working at Capers. So you started as an undergrad, and then you started the grad program? And then
I joined the grad program straight away. So although I was although I was still doing my degree, I actually just joined as a graduate.
Wow, that's convenient.
Because I'd finished my original undergraduate degree,
that makes sense.
So I technically qualified. I always like to say that. But yeah, look, starting in audit was probably the best thing I could have done for myself.
I hear that so many times.
Yeah, it was an accident. I never intended to be there. I interviewed 4 times in different areas to stay away from it.
For?
I originally applied for what was called corporate finance back then. That's changed now, and then I got moved on to some financial management one, which I think was the original legacy of my team today.
Oh, yeah.
And then I got moved somewhere enterprise audit.
Yeah.
And they only had one position available, and there was me and one other person applying for that one. good news, they left after 6 months, so they clearly made the wrong choice.
Yeah.
And then they eventually put me to corporate external audit, dealing with the big clients. But it was the best thing because I started with a group of 10 people. So 10 of us all started on the same day. And so I instantly had a group, a cohort of friends, and I had a cohort of people who were equally as confused as me.
That makes you feel good.
All on a level playing field, except for that one person that had done an internship beforehand. And we used to look at them as like they knew everything for those first couple of months because they'd done it once before. But, you know, what audit was you got immediately embedded into a small team. You had people who were stacked in experience above you. So you had one person who'd been there for a year, one person who'd been there for 3 years, one person who'd been there for 7 years. And you had all these different levels of experience. So depending on what you needed, you had someone who could help you with every single question.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I really enjoyed it, to be honest, for my first couple of years. For me, audit was never going to be a career, but it was going to be a foundation. And the thing was, I started enjoying it quite a lot. You know, we were very social in our small grad group, and we were all studying our CA together, and we were all, you know, going out and getting drinks on Fridays and having a great time. And then over the years, some people started to branch off and move on. And that's when your eyes sort of lift up and you go, oh, maybe I should be looking elsewhere. Is this what I want to keep doing? And that's when I attempted to make a transfer.
That was at year 2, huh?
Yeah, that was at year 2, and I'm really glad that it was unsuccessful.
Oh, you don't hear that often.
Yeah, it turns out that it was probably, again, one of the best things for me. I attempted to come into my current team a year earlier, and I interviewed with some of the people that were in the team even when I eventually joined, and I got knocked back at the time. And then I proceeded to have probably one of my best years ever in audit. I got a few people above me left. I got step-up opportunities. I took on a lot of more challenging tasks. I got to manage people underneath me and take on a far more broader role, and that wouldn't have been possible had I left. And so I ended up probably accelerating. I felt like my personal growth in career accelerated a lot in that 1 year. And so then when I reapplied, when the role reopened in my team and I reapplied, I felt so confident going into it after coming off the back of that year that I didn't even think that I wouldn't get it. I kind of just walked in and went, I know I'm going to get this. I'm ready now. This is what I want to do. And I did an interview. I had to do a case study, which was very intense. And then a final interview with our
Wow, it's so formal. I thought it'd be chill, like came in and Nick.
Yeah. The case study was one of the most hilarious, in hindsight, experiences. The guy who operated it for me, he is still with KPMG, and I came into the room and he said to me, here's your piece of paper, read it, understand it, I'll come back in 20 minutes in character as the CFO.
Oh, I like it.
And he walked out of the room. And I just left in a small little room with a piece of paper going, what do I do? And so I just started read both sides, and then I was like, all right, this is like uni. These are those case studies that I did in uni in my business management degree. And so I just started going, and I started coming up with problems. And when he walked in the room, I think I had the job the minute he walked in the room because I was writing stuff on the whiteboard. I was whiteboarding up my solution to the problem.
That's so good.
And then he looked at the whiteboard, and I just saw him be like, oh, we like that. Yeah. It's a whiteboard. We're consultants. We love whiteboards.
Yeah, they do.
And so he sat down and he said, hi, I'm the CFO, blah, blah, blah. How are you going to help me? And he was in full character. And he did not break the entire 20 minutes. And he was interrogating me, and then I took him to the whiteboard and I was like explaining my solution to his problems, and I was like, and if you do this here and this here, and I genuinely think that was where I got it, was just that case study and the way I applied it. So yeah, that was a lot of fun. And I've interviewed a lot of people for our
Have you
team
done that?
since, and I've tried to instill that same character into myself when I'm interviewing other people. So I had to go through it, so
Yeah, they're going to taste it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's awesome. And at that time, was it called Finance Advisory?
No, we were called Finance Strategy and Performance.
Ooh,
FSMP. So when I first applied for the role, it was called Finance Management.
Yeah.
When I interviewed, it was called Finance Strategy and Transformation.
Mm.
And by the time I started, it was called Finance Strategy and Performance. And they went through 3 name changes in the course of about 4 months. So that was all very confusing. But then just recently we merged with CFO Advisory team and became Finance Advisory. So we've doubled in size.
Ooh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then tell me more about the transition between levels. So you were grad and then senior con and then manager.
Yeah, and it's a little bit more complicated than that because of audit. So in audit you start as an A1. I was an accountant 1, the lowest level of person in the firm. And then after about 6 months you become an A2, accountant 2.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it was a major promotion. It was a big hallmark. I went home, told mum and dad, it was great.
Yeah.
They were very proud of me.
That's so cute.
And then the following year you become a senior accountant 1, an SA1 or an S1. And then the following year you become a senior accountant 2, and that's typically when you finish your CA, which is what I did. And it was at that moment that I also transitioned across to consulting, and so I changed job titles over from a senior accountant to a senior consultant. And I really liked being a senior. I was a senior for about 3 years between my about a year and a half in audit, a year and a half in consulting. And I really enjoyed being a senior. It was a level where you got a lot of leeway to do a little bit more, but you got a lot of direction, a lot of coverage above you. So it was a really safe to fail level. And I feel like a lot of people are rushing to get out of senior con.
Yeah.
But it's a really foundational level. I think you can kind of rush through con a little bit, but senior, it's worth spending your time and really figuring out what you like, what you're good at, because that all becomes pretty front of mind when you become a manager.
Yeah, that's also. And how's the manager role now?
I love being a manager.
Senior con?
Yeah, of course. And I'm probably going to keep saying
rush.
that. Yeah, I'm going to keep saying that each time, I reckon. If I become an AD, I'm going to be saying the same thing. It's better than a manager. And I'll keep saying that as you go up.
Yeah.
And no, I like being a manager. It's one of those levels that, again, you get a good amount of respect and credential in what you do. People sort of see you as someone who knows what they're talking about, which is always very good. But at the same time, you also get all the perks of being a manager in the sense that, you're finally earning a little bit more income, and that's always nice. And, you got a little bit more say in your schedule and what you're doing. So, there's a few things that are good about being a manager. Yeah.
That's awesome. And then tell me, what exactly do you do? I know every day is different as a consultant, manager.
Yeah, so I work with what we call our powered enterprise finance offerings. So I do a lot of work with ERP, finance system transformation. My big thing is, and that's it, no day's the same in consulting. I've fortunately done a lot of our work, but the area that I kind of focus in on is that finance transformation. So I go into organisations and I host workshops, and I'll sit there in front of 30 very experienced finance professionals, sometimes up to the CFO and back down, and say, where do you guys want to be, and what is your dream? Like, what is the dream of this finance function? No barriers in the way. Where would you be if you could be somewhere? And then they start to tell us about it across all the different things that they do. So, between how they manage their assets, their projects, their budgets, and they start telling you what all those are, and you start figuring out where all their pain points are and their problems. And what we do is we take that and we go, great, now here's what we say is the best way of doing it, or what we call the better practice way of doing it, and we're going to try and bring the better practice way of it into your organisation, which will help you achieve the dream. It'll solve some of those pain points, and then we're going to implement a solution like a new ERP that helps enable all of that. So you're going to be able to do all of these awesome tasks. And I've been fortunate enough to do it in some really fantastic organisations. And so it was last year I got my first chance to do a complete end-to-end engagement on this, where I started with the dream, what do you want to be? And I was there all the way through to the system live. I was there through the hypercare period at the end, helping them through warranty. and I was there for that entire period. So previously I'd always done like chunks. I'd been there for the go live, I'd been there for the design, but I'd never been there for the whole thing.
Yeah.
So I finally got to do that, and I was the project manager as well. So, you know, I had all of the pressure, but I got all of the rewards. So everyone sort of, you know, was very grateful of that project, and I had a fantastic time on it. I think it was one of my favourite projects here. Yeah, so that was really good. It was really hard to come off that high, I think.
Yeah, I can't beat that.
Yeah, and yeah, you know, that's the core of what I do. But there's so many other things that I do in my role, which are just, you know, it's just kind of countless. You'd know, being a consultant, you just, some days I'm creating packs, some days I'm delivering training, some days I'm doing workshops. Some days I'm just sitting there and telling juniors about funny things that have happened over the last few years, and just sort of coaching them, and that's a big part of my role. And a big part of my values here is coaching people. So I love coaching juniors. Yeah, it's a big part.
And what kind of person would like the work that you do? Is there a certain personality type that would, they have to be very numbers inclined, they have to love people, they have to be good?
I think people.
Pretty presentations.
I think people are the ones who like the work that I do. My view on it is you can create the best PowerPoint slide in the world, you can crunch the numbers as many times as you want, but at the heart of every decision is another person. So, you know, people who can talk to and communicate and really empathise with what's going on around them. I feel like they're the people that like what I do. They recognise that you're not just doing it to get a result, you're doing it to ultimately help them.
Yeah.
And I kind of owe my success to the fact that I spent my entire career mostly being surrounded by more numbers orientated and detail orientated people, and I've navigated my way through that as a people person.
Yeah.
And I've found that that's been far more successful for me, to be able to sort of navigate through the quagmire of KPMG.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm thinking we should do a part 2 because I think this meeting room might be booked, but I'm not sure. So do you want to say bye for now?
See you later.
Bye.